What's up, guys? Welcome to Cesyk Live Presents Type 1L Cement Best Practice Finishing Series. Tonight, Decorative Concrete. Guys, a few weeks ago, we dove into this 1L cement thing. We dove in deep, 3 hours long worth, and we picked apart about everything we could when it come to 1L cement. Then we decided we're going to narrow it down a little bit. And then we went with what should be in your mix and how do you find out what is in your mix? How do you read your batch tickets? And then from there, we went into broom finish work. What do you do with the 1L? What are some tips and tricks you can do with this 1L to have a good product in the end? And we addressed broom work last week. Tonight, decorative work. And we got a great panel once again here tonight. All returning members. And that tells you something, guys. The guys on this panel, I consider them high caliber people, and for them to take time out of their day to do this with us week in and week out, the same people, shows you how important this is, that we all, we arm ourselves with this knowledge. Okay. Don't let this stuff go by the wayside. If you have to throw this in your truck and listen to it 5 minutes at a time on the way to work, take in this information, because these guys around me, they want to share it. And it's about our only weapon we have for this stuff, other than packing up shop and start laying pavers. So tonight, we're going to dive into it, and we're going to address everything concrete work. As always, my buddy, Mike Griffin. How are you, Mike? See in there? Can you hear me? Can we go?
Yeah, I had it on mute.
Okay.
Hey, I'm doing good, Rocky.
Good. Are you able to see comments tonight? You're going to kind of keep an eye on that?
That's what I was looking
at a time on the way to work. Oh, somebody had a little echo there, maybe.
I'm seeing comments, but I did find it in the event.
Cool. All right. And then to my other side here, Mr. Ben Weiss, how are you tonight, buddy?
Doing wonderful, bud.
Another returning member, and it's a pleasure to have you again tonight. And it's always a pleasure to talk and pick your brain. So look forward to doing that again tonight, especially from the decorative world. So just below him, Mr. Emil Garrell. Emil? Is it Emil or Emil? Emil Guerra. Guys, if you don't know anything about Emil, go check him out. Multiple national award winner on some of his work. Just blow your mind. National instructor for decorative stuff. Go check out some of Emil's stuff. How are you tonight, buddy?
I am good. How about you, Rocky?
Good. It's a pleasure to have you on the panel tonight, especially when we dive into this. We know this is near and dear to you. You really have an investment in this, so I'm glad to have you on the panel and be able to represent some of the guys watching and their questions and their emotions that they're going to have in this. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely, sir.
And then just beside him, Mr. Ben Bass, again, the same lines. This is really near and dear to Ben with some of his stuff he's had recently. So again, he's going to represent you guys watching tonight, and you'll see the emotion in his voice and the questions he asks, because again, just like Emil, they have an invested interest in this stuff, and they've been on the wrong end of it. So Mr. Ben Bass, how are you tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good, Rocky. How about you?
I'm doing well. Another CESYK vet. So it's a pleasure to have you again tonight. Just to the side of him, Mr. Jason Proctor, another vet here on these 1L panels. How are you tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. Excited to learn a little bit about decorative from these guys, these long timers.
Sure. And that's a good thing. And you bring a good viewpoint to all this too. And I love to hear everything and your input in this. So again, for you, it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us. So we'll go just below him there. Let's move him around for just a second. Anyway, Mr. Don Barr, our resident expert, CESYK resident expert. Mr. Don Barr, how are you, buddy?
Last time I checked, I was fine.
Well, that's good. How about that dinner cooking? Don't you got something? I can smell it from here. So
I can't. You're doing better than me.
It's okay. All right, Don, it's always a pleasure to have you, and I love our talks, man, and you're always a huge asset and knowledge around here. So
pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So now let's move down on my screen now, down in the middle there, Mr. Zach West, another returning member on these panel, and a huge asset for here. Zach always has a lot of good screen shares and stuff, so I don't know. We'll see how we get into this decorative stuff, but he's always a huge asset. So Mr. Zach West, pleasure to have you here tonight. How are you?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. We'll You got any certs or anything we can pull up tonight, maybe? Or
I don't think so tonight.
all right, well, no worries. We got. If you guys want to see some certs, go to the YouTube channel. Check out some of the old ones. There's plenty in there. So just to his, I guess it would be his left, but Mr. Bobby Denny, another returning member, has been on CESYK in the past. We did a good interview, just like Ben Bass. A lot of these guys on this panel have been on that, so that's a good thing. But anyway, Mr. Bobby Denny, how are you, buddy? It's good to have you on. Also, you got a lot of emotion in this too, so you're dealing with this stuff day in and day out, and you're kind of coming from the standpoint where you don't get a lot of control over the mixes that are there. You just kind of show up and pour. So that's a huge viewpoint that I'm glad that you're going to bring tonight. So it's a pleasure to have you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Rocky. I appreciate you guys being here, man. I'm just excited to, gathering some of this information.
That's it. That's it. So I just want to tell you all, you guys, I really appreciate your time in this again this week. And like I said earlier, that really drives home how important this is. And guys, don't take this for granted. Really, really apply some of this stuff. At least try. Okay. So I guess decorative concrete work. So where do we start? So maybe let's just start with mix. Is there a special mix that I'm looking for? I know in the past I've been told you want to shoot for a pea gravel mix. And I know that's probably not the best thing for that. And I know I've talked to Mr. Don Barr a lot. And if I'm going to use some color hardener, I want to try to get aggregates that are going to bleed, right? Because I want as much bleed water as I can possibly get, if possible, for my color hardener to hydrate, right? So what are some things I want to look for to get a good proper mix for some decorative concrete? Be it maybe exposed ag, stamped, something like that. So maybe we address a little bit difference on both of those.
For me, Rocky, I like to have a nice blend.
Okay.
So we like to have a nice blend of pea gravel, N67s, and a graded blend of sand, so that we're kind of have a nice fatty mix, kind of filling all the little voids in and gives us something to work with.
That's good. And I know Don talks about that a lot, the gradient of the aggregate, the size having all the gradient, right? Is that what that's called? Am I using the proper term for that?
Well, a uniform packing of the various size aggregates is what we're looking for.
Okay.
Not a whole ton of this real fine stuff. That's always a problem. So, but uniform gradient of 3/4 pea gravel and sand.
But we're trying to avoid anything 3/4 plus, really angular big stuff. That's going to be a problem, especially if we get it with matte with a lot of coarse detail in the joints and things. We're going to get pop outs and some tears on the edges from stuff like that. So for us, 3/4 minus, well graded down to sand.
Now, what about admixtures such as retardants or anything like that? I know in the
before we leave there, let's talk a little bit about the other types of aggregates other than the fractured, because you have a lot of river gravel in places that is 3/4 and up, maybe up to an inch and down. I see a lot of that. That works very, very well with Deco concrete. Gives you good bleed.
Okay. And we've talked about that, and we kind of mentioned that in the intro, the idea of that bleed, whatever you can get to create a bleed that you need to hydrate that, especially if you're going to use color hardener, right? Cast in. I don't know that it's as important maybe if it's integral color. Correct me if I'm wrong, but right? No?
Well, we need water
Sure.
at the top.
Yeah.
And the longer it can stay there, the better off we'll be.
Okay.
Correct. And that will actually calm a lot of your blushing and such later as well. Because by being able to have that bleed available, it's actually going to keep that surface cool. And by keeping that surface cool, you're going to have less salts, less, Don and I could go into some of those things, but that's where you're going to calm down a lot of that blushing later.
Okay. Now I guess we need to talk on it, and we've talked on it. Every one of these we've done thus far, But like I always say, we got to beat this like a dead horse. So let's talk about the water content ratio. And it's really important for decorative, as any, right? But we really need that stuff for the deco work. So let's kind of talk about that and what we need to do to get that where it needs to be. You want to have a smack at that, Zach? You're pretty good at explaining that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of our rule of thumb that we've been talking about on all these so far has been 0.48 or greater. There's a lot of science behind that and knowing your mixed designs and things like that. And it's just trying to outpace the water of necessity. What's going to hydrate your cement, aggregates, what's going to be used. We want to be 400ths or so higher than that. So that way we have ample water at the surface, keep the top hydrated, help with color hardeners and things like that.
Now, these mixed design questions, is this something that I'm talking to my dispatch guy when I call in, at 7:00 that morning and I got mud at 8? Am I talking about it then, or do I need to be in there the day before or the week before and saying, hey, this is what I want. What can we do to make something like this happen?
Weeks before right now, because they are undereducated just as the rest of us have been when it comes to especially limestone-based cements and what it's requiring to really hydrate them and also leave enough water to finish with. So work a few weeks ahead of them, especially if it's on something decorative. I mean, we all know that concrete costs twice as much to put back as it did the first time going in, and decorative multiplies that. So
sure. Good. So in this, the guy's going to say, well, man, as soon as I start designing mixes and I tell him what I want, now I become liable for that mix, right? Don, what's our answer for that?
You're liable for the mix he's sending you. Unless he can prove that you worked it over and killed it, you're liable for that mix as well. So you might as well send the water.
Yep. And I know, like Emil, you could probably attest to that too, right? In the end, it doesn't matter. You're gonna pay. So
yeah, you are. No matter what comes out of that truck, guys, we're putting our name on it. So the best control that you can, make sure that you know what is going into and coming out of those trucks. So Ben and I just poured. Ben, how many yards did we put down there at DCI? I think it was 34, 35 total.
Yeah.
And Ben and I were very fortunate. We had Mr. Bob Harris there, working on the mix designs, and we pulled back, I believe, 50% of the water reducer on most of what we poured, and that mud all went down super nice.
Nice.
So we had plenty of bleed. We did integral color along with color hardener. We did color hardened borders, and cutting that water reducer back to half definitely gave us the surface moisture that we needed, and made everything move along pretty sweet.
Nice. Now, did you have to go with anything?
It's funny when it comes to that. I've been down there to help the last, I think, 4 years, maybe 5, and every year we typically do 2 pours, and we always start with pulling out half the mid-range. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes the next truck we got to pull out all the mid-range. So it's crazy to me with someone who is giving this ready mix an exact mix design, how it varies that much from year to year. We don't know if we got to pull half out. I mean, we're talking ounces, right, per hundredweight. That's not a whole lot, but it does make a big difference. So it's always been fascinating to me that we start with half, pulling half out, and then sometimes we end up with pulling all of it out, or just it's fine with half. So little adjustments like that can make a huge difference. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be a one size fits all, meaning like every single day is the same. You may have to make little adjustments here and there.
Good stuff there.
What do you say about the potential for adding your additives, your water reducers on site, rather than letting the plant mess with them?
That would be great, in my opinion. Unfortunately, like most of what I have looked at, especially here recently, they are batching 0 slump concrete because of the water demand. The what you were getting on site at a 4-inch slump is mostly slumped with water reducer. So a lot of plants would be scared to send a 3-inch slump to you because they probably couldn't make it work with their current systems.
once again, it goes back to their concern is PSI, brake strength.
Yeah.
Our concern on the decorative side, how long is that surface going to last? We want to make sure that that surface is intact for decades. Maybe some people don't. I do, or I don't want to do it. So
Sure.
the PSI, if we just needed to be able to hold up the vehicle traffic or foot traffic, depending on what we're doing. We don't need something from top to bottom that's 4 or 5 inches thick to be 20,000 PSI.
Valid
We just
points.
need that surface there. That's what really matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
So with our ready mix supplier, we don't have the option to add them chemicals on site. You know, they're putting that stuff in at the plant, you know, with their computer or whatever they're adding in. The only thing that we will add on site ourselves is retarder. You know, we will use a Fritz pack step retard as we pour, but we're trusting the plant to put all the other stuff in.
So you bring
I
that
just
up
mentioned that because I see some guys doing that in Chicago these days. And I wondered how that went over with the various plants. But like Elmhurst, Chicago Stone, and Willie Brothers here in Chicagoland area, I've seen the guys adding their own water reducer, getting it out there at 3 inches and adding their own until they see it's the way they want it, and then moving forward with it. It allows them to do a much better job of fine tuning it in the field and trying to undo something that's already done in the truck.
Don, do you see any kind of issue with that, with adding the chemicals on site with revs on the truck then, or extra time mixing on site?
Well, it's not all that much more time. We've got so many plants around Chicago that travel time is usually not the problem.
Okay.
You know, it's the mix.
Good.
And that's the
so Emil, you mentioned
our friend.
Go ahead.
Our friend Steve. Well, our friend Steve Lloyd, brought that up on that first meeting that we had. Right. He wants a neat, clean mix design and add. Give me my water. Give me my 3-4 inch slump with water. And then let's add, if we need more slump, if that, slump goes down by the time I get it to the site, then let's do a little lower, little mid-range, on site.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually what those, and Don can kind of go into the history of that, but that's originally what those admixtures were designed for.
Exactly.
So, they were meant to be added on site to give you the performance that you needed to be able to place, do all that. But there is an expectation for you to actually have the water available to hydrate your cement, Rocky.
Sure.
So if you don't have that, you're going to have some unintended consequences.
Good info. Okay, so Emil, you had mentioned like the Fritz pack and things like that, like a retarder. And the way I know the way that you use them and the way that we would use them typically is as you're stamping and you want to set this load so it's it sets perfectly for you. But let's talk about some retardants from the plant. And I know Chewy, the last one, had made the comment, and I know what he was saying, but I just kind of want to repeat it and see if it applies here. And that sometimes when you get retarder, you actually needed accelerant, and meaning that the top of it, when you do the retarder, it's still mushy down here, and the top is ready to stamp, and it just doesn't work together. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. So, what's your opinions on that, Emil and Ben?
So that's all going to be about a matter of site conditions in the day.
Okay.
If we're looking at, you have a day that is 90 degrees and we're out in the direct sun, we're probably going to want to put that little bit of accelerator in there to get that bottom going and keep up with the top. Sure. Now for us, and we just did this as well, where we'll tent as much of the area as we possibly can. So we will go to great extremes to put up great big tarps and covers. Absolutely. When we're stamping, to give us extra time to keep that surface alive. The mud that we put down in Georgia, from the time it came off the chute till we were done stamping, was 2.5 to 3 hours, start to finish. So we were moving fast, and everything was for the most part out of the sun.
Now, a lot of guys, and we'll talk more about this when we get into the practice of placing and such. But a lot of guys are really resorting to that tenting process and just building lean-to tents with plastic and such, especially in the decorative world. So we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, I agree with that. So
we're gonna add a whole chapter into the training thing, Rocky, on building redneck tents.
That's man, it's and all over the page, guys are talking about it regularly, right? So you could have some makeshift drawing up blueprints in there, and this is the way you can build it if you have a porch. This is the way you can build it if you're trying to close off a door. Now I know we used to do this. One of my best friends I used to work for, pouring flat work. When we did a lot of pole barns, and he hated how the doors always flash, because it's the only part that gets sun. Those of you guys that poured a lot of garages and barns, you know what I'm saying. But he would always tent the door for it didn't matter if it was going to rain or anything. We would build a linen tent off of that door just because he didn't want the sun to make that area flash, and you'd get that, burnt cold joint right there. And first thing you see when you walk into a garage. So anyway, I got on a huge tangent about tenting there. So let's get back to mix design. So what else? Is there other things we need to know about mix design? What about fiber? Is this something that I should have? Is it going to help? Is it case scenario?
So I think fiber is always a real good thing to have in there. It is no replacement for steel, but it's going to help keep your top on a little bit better. You got the microfibers holding it down, but it is going to steal water from your mix. Okay.
Now, is that really a thing? I've heard this, that the fiber wants to suck in that water too if it's not prehydrated or whatever it is.
It's
not sucking the water. It's more of it's holding everything together. Yeah, it doesn't. The fibers are all polypropylene, so they're non-absorbent.
Okay.
Well, and there's all kind of different fibers too as well, right? I mean, I think with decorative work, you should be, using microfibers or some kind of stealth or small fibers like that, and just keep it simple. If you do get, I don't know about you guys, but we poured same stuff over and over, and one day, one truck, we may end up having fibers sticking up all over the place. There's so many things you can't control. That's kind of easy to go back with a blowtorch and just kind of burn those off. But I'm a fan of fiber as well. We still put, we don't use steel. We use, what do you call it? Fiberglass bar. But we always put that in there. Like Emil said, I don't think there's a replacement for that. If you do get some kind of movement, we all know rebar doesn't keep concrete from cracking, but if one does form, it really does help it not separate as much.
Sure. Okay, so I think we got mix kind of.
Rocky, I wanted to go back, if you don't mind. I'd like to go back to the retarders. I'm not a fan of retarder. I used it for a long time, and then it just seemed like it would delay your mix. And whenever, I'm not a chemist, so I'm just speaking for, a finisher side. From what I see, it lays there. It just lays there. It's dead. And all of a sudden, when that chemical reaction is done, it just snaps. And all of a sudden, you're freaking out. You were just fine. You were more than fine. And now it's too late.
Yep.
A couple years ago, we actually started using Delvo. And we would dose that down into small increments. And our ready mix ended up figuring out, okay, we can ask for 1 hour of Delvo delay, 2 hours of Delvo delay, and so on. So for me personally, especially with seamless texture, say we would do 30, 40, 50 yards in a shot, then I personally want to get on there and start stamping as soon as I can. So we wouldn't put anything in that first 9 or 10 yards. That first truck had nothing in it. Then we may do 1 hour delay of Delvo, and then 2, and then maybe get a little bit of spacing in our truck. When it goes to, so I personally like that. The first time I ever used it, we were doing a 2-truck pool deck. We were able to stamp. We had nothing in the first truck. We were able to stamp the first truck. We got into the second truck and had to get off, and the homeowner got us pizza. We literally, in the middle of summer in July, sat there and ate pizza. Was like, holy shit, we have never been in this situation before. And the nice thing was, when we got back on and started stamping, it was so slow. So it wasn't like a flash. It didn't just take off. We just eased our way right on through it. And it was like, I don't know why we haven't been using this stuff before.
And the surface set along with the body. The surface didn't You didn't get the surface cracks because the surface is going faster than the body.
It was hot that day. It was super hot. We didn't have high winds. I'll be honest with you, Rocky. If we can't pour before 8 a.m., I don't pour anymore. I'll pass. I know sometimes not everybody can do that, but it's just a fear of mine. I would rather have time to work with it. But yeah, we never had any issues with that. With the top crusting over, creating that what they call apple pie effect, to where it's hard crusted on top and then jello underneath. But for me personally, I could be wrong, and these guys would know. I think the Delvo may be a Master Builders admixture. I'm not. I could be wrong on that.
So there's two different things you're talking about, really. Yeah, a retarder retards one phase of hydration and not both. So you get that flash set. That's what causes your flash set. While you've got one part of your set is not going, but the other one is still working. So as soon as that wears off, that's why they flash set. A hydration stabilizer completely shuts down all hydration for a very linear dosage amount of time. So you could time it like, I want a half hour, I want an hour, I want 2 hours. I've laid it out for 7 days before on an experiment.
What?
And 7 days, baby. And then all of a sudden, on that, about halfway through that 7th day, it'll start setting like normal concrete.
We use it in a producer up in British Columbia that delivers to the islands off the coast. And some of those trips are 3-4 hours. And hydration stabilizer holds that stuff until they're ready to do whatever they want to do with it. So you can dial it in very closely.
It's kind of a cool product. And because that cement stayed and laid there not hydrating for so long, the water was to it, everything was to it. So it hydrates really well once it actually wears off, and your strength is crazy strength gain just out of it, because you get almost 98% or something hydration at that point, because it all laid there dormant for so long. It's kind of a cool product, but that is a hydration stabilizer. So anybody out there that's wanted to use something like that, never ever say retarder to your ready mix guy, or you're going to get retarder. And then you're going to have those same problems, that weird set where it just explodes on you. And then, but you always just say hydration stabilizer, because they're two different things. So it's very important to say hydration stabilizer.
That's
if you're taking notes today,
obviously we like, hey, we want 1 hour of Delvo delay. We always say that. I know there's a difference if I tell them retarder, but since that's a Master Builders product, and there are ready mixes out there that carry different manufacturers or brands, just for anybody else that may not have access to Master Builders, are there other ones out there that they may be able to get that's similar?
Yuko Shield is one. Yuko Shield is a hydration stabilizer. Excellent one.
Okay. Yeah, most of all the major admix guys have one. Like Grace is called Recover, Delvo. I'm trying to remember what Cesyk was, but it's the
and Yuko Shield calls theirs a finishing aid, which it's not.
So. Ben, you talk about being able to purchase it from your plant, I think we're talking about when Steve Dickey's always talked about this. He buys it by the barrel, and he has it himself. He doesn't just count on the plant to put in an hour, because what if you want to get some more? So it
works.
He doses it by the half hour.
I think Joe Redwine used it as well. Yuko Shield.
I've seen Steve Dickey actually purchase a Delvo pucks, and I have searched the internet top to bottom and cannot find them. I don't know where he gets that, but so it seems similar to Fritz Pack, which I like Fritz Pack, like you guys talked about. If we're doing a pattern stamp, something slow moving like wood plank, or maybe a slow tedious ashlar cobblestone, then and we have a 9-yard load, we'll just spray paint a line at 3 yards and spray paint another one at 3 yards. It works really good. I personally feel like it's way more superior than using like a retarder from the plant, but maybe that's just the retarder that we've had. I haven't used concrete all over the country like some of these guys.
Well,
So
one of the, go ahead, Zach.
We use hydration stabilizers a lot in volumetric because of the false set. When you introduce that water right there at the back of the truck to everything, everything wants to fight for the water all at once. So you end up with a really dry appearing slump until it all decides it's got enough and rejects it. So we use a little hydration stabilizer to slow the cement, and it lets the aggregates hydrate first to their maximum absorption. And that's the same thing that you can get in ready mix also, is that you're giving the rock a chance to hydrate before the cement starts going, so they're not fighting each other, and you get that little bit of delay, and that could help with a lot of other issues that people are having as well.
So one of the other benefits with hydration stabilizer is the reduction in the blotchy effect of surfaces. Just because it lays there and hydrates for a long period of time uniformly. It's all the way through the body. And so it eliminates a lot of that blotchy dark gray against 100%. Light gray condition that you see.
So I wanted to bring up to you guys with Delvo. I just shared with y'all the 8,000 square foot driveway I'm having issues with. So our ready mix, probably 3 weeks ago, the main guy called and he said, hey, we just had a meeting. I think I told you guys about this meeting too, but they were like, hey, look, basically they were saying that to help with any surface issues that we need to start using Delvo in all of our pours. And I said, well, that's interesting because we did this 120 yards on this 8,000 square foot driveway, and we would do 40, 50 yards, 30, 40, 50 yards, depending on the area at a time. And we would put nothing in the first truck, and then 1 hour of Delvo delay in the second truck, 2 hours in the third truck. But every bit of the surface is doing the exact same thing. So there goes that shit out the window. I don't know where they're getting this information. Maybe it was just a freak anomaly, but it didn't work on our job.
Are you really talking? Its intent, yeah. As far as like the surface stuff like that, that's not gonna. All it's gonna do. All it does is stop the cement hydration. It doesn't do anything fancy other than that, except if you're doing some pervious concrete or something, and it takes the sticky off of it. Other than that, it doesn't really do anything else. You'll get some better strength out of it long term, but as far as like coating it as a finishing aid and some other stuff, I don't know about all that.
And one of the things, so the first note of the day, and it goes right in line with all that, is that hydration stabilizer, not retarder. The other thing is that just because that you have that, you absolutely need to protect that moisture that is there. Okay, and so what are you doing to make sure that you're getting your early evaporation, your initial and intermediate curing taken care of, Rocky? It's all really going to fall back to that. It's important, first of all, that we've got the moisture available in the mix design, right? Especially for decorative. But then now let's protect that, because what Sam brought up is absolutely right. The thing is that is meant to just basically stop the clock on that cement hydration. It's just putting it to sleep, right? But it's not doing anything. Like if you're not protecting that moisture and you're losing it, you're in trouble. Sure. You are absolutely in trouble. So it's paused it. It's put a pause on it, and several of the things have been brought up about it being very even and all that. That's great. Yes, it has. However, you're also going to very evenly lose your moisture if you haven't taken that into account. So all of these things are a stacking of best practice, and the things that Ben just brought up are like yes, and yes, right? There are things that are actually happening. Yeah, it all went. Yeah, it did, because as it went, it was because of moisture loss at that point. It did what it was supposed to do, but there are other things going on as well. And if we're not actually balancing that, I've seen some of the kind of almost smart aleck remarks about, well, that's fine. You're engineer. I do this in the field every day. All right. This is not, you sit behind a desk and you do it. I'm on this for. I'm on pours every day. And these things are happening. You've got to understand how they're happening. Once you understand the why, then you change the how button. You delicately do the things that Sam is talking about. You want more, you need more time, you need to do that. That's great, but now we need to protect that so that we don't have early moisture loss, so that it's still there when the cement clicks and says, now it's time for me to hydrate.
Well said.
Yep, I agree.
There's no more water in that mix with hydration stabilizer. It's the same amount.
So anything we think we need to add to mix design, anything like that? Things I need to add.
No, I think
that's pretty straightforward. I think we got that now.
It is, and I think that really these guys that are doing the decorative, Adelvo, that hydration stabilizer, these types of things, understanding these, some of the, well, we don't need to be chemists. You do. You need to understand what you need.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't be an advocate for yourself, no one else is going to do it for you.
Yep.
So, do you think that should we be using a surface evaporation retarder at the same time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're not protecting the water that's there, once that water's gone, it's gone.
It's not just for decorative concrete. That's for concrete, all concrete, just every drop of concrete.
Oh,
That's
I wanted to ask
standard.
You guys, I wanted to ask you guys, like, if you say you pour at 5 in the morning and your relative humidity, everything looks good, are you using evaporation retardant anyways, just regardless?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reason is, Ben, is that if you actually, have y'all purchased your Kestrel yet? Right?
Yes.
If you're running those and if you're actually taking those numbers, right, from the time that mud hits the ground until you begin finishing, whatever length of what time that window is, if you're looking at your numbers and you've got those there, if you calculate those, okay, in a 6-hour window, you're losing 12 gallons of water out of a mix design. Do you understand that?
Per
12
yard, you
gallons. I'm not talking. I'm talking about through evaporation.
Yeah, and that's not even
no
high.
longer there.
That's not even a high day. That's just that's if you're in what ACI recommends as good. That's you're still losing that. That moisture is still evaporating. So it's just not to a critical, the supercritical stage. It's still evaporating though the whole time. As soon as the concrete comes out of the back of the truck, it's losing moisture.
Yeah, go ahead, Emil.
And we always go ahead.
So here would be a good question, and I have never done this. Can we so when we're finishing decorative, we know we have to finish from, where we're going to start stamping, finish uniformly off the end, so that we don't put, we can't come back and trial into what we did already. So can we put surface evaporation retarder over concrete that we already have finished, ready to stamp, to hold the surface if we're not going to touch it with trials again?
100%, and every time.
Okay, so that's something that I don't know. I've never done that. Ben, have you or Bobby?
Never even considered it, honestly.
Yep.
Me neither.
Yeah, it goes on, and then you do you lay your concrete, knock it flat, put the evaporation retarder on. In that time period before you hit it with the trowel again, as long as you're not touching it, it keeps that film on. As soon as you hit it with a trowel, it's a monomolecular. Sorry, AJ, it's 1 atom thick. And it puts a film on top. Yeah, it's a really thin film. And as soon as you touch it, you broke it.
Yep. Correct.
So then you do your other finishing operations. And then while you're sitting waiting between those operations, you hit it again until you're done and then do your final cure. Every bit of that helps.
Asking though, Sam, is say it's laid down nice. You're not going to hit it anymore with trowels or mags or whatever you're going to do, to spray it then, and then now you're ready to stamp, or would that create an issue with spraying,
just stay ahead of it,
release or something like that?
Yeah,
no.
To take it past that, when you're done stamping, would you spray more on it, since now we can't seal it or put blanket or put burlap or anything on there?
If you're still in that set point, and the concrete is still in that, and you're not done yet, right? It's still, you can't do anything. You're still, until you apply ACI 308, right? It totally lays out curing, okay? And if you haven't applied a final cure yet, you're still in the window of what we consider intermediate curing, Ben. And so if that concrete is still, if it's still plastic, still malleable, still hasn't set, it's still in the protection state. Right. And so you would still, until that concrete sets, now do not over apply it. Okay. Fog it, do the things, because what's happening, there are a couple of things, and man, Don and I have had some amazing, I hope you guys have really been paying attention, because we've been dropping some fire in the background.
Yep.
And the thing that happens with that is you're actually cooling the surface when you're applying that. You're allowing that evaporative cooling to actually happen with now you want to keep it evenly moist. Do not allow, one of the things in 308 that we've in 308 guide, you don't want cycles of wetting and drying. Okay, because that will exacerbate the blushing. It will exacerbate pulling salts to the surface. It will actually heat the surface. There are many, many things with that, guys. And so you need to be very even. There is a scientific method to placing a concrete, right? Sam is part of strategies. Their thing is the art and science of concrete, right? And it really is. There is an art to it, but there's a science to it. And if you understand and respect those things and you don't break the rules, you actually begin taking care of a lot of your problems that when you really wrap your hands around, you begin to realize I was creating that issue.
So Ben, you are saying that the job is stamped. We just pulled the mats off. That may be a good idea to go ahead and spray evaporation retardant back over it.
If you can't get a final cure on it yet, it's still right. You're still in that intermediate protection phase. If you can't apply a final cure to it, right now, if you're using powder release, Ben,
you
throw some more powder on it.
Yeah,
throw some more powder on it. Right,
with
because
liquid release, since you're putting down basically, like Sam said, I love the analogy of a thin mill of plastic. Now you have liquid release on there, which is kind of a water repellent. Will that lay across there like a blanket, or will it kind of want to like separate since you have liquid release on? If you're using
liquid release, I would think that it would, because liquid release is mineral spirits, right? Yeah. And so it's going to have it's going to have a hydrophobic, it may have some water beading effect to it. Right. But in that, it's also going to have an evaporative effect and a cooling effect on that surface as well. So, I mean, there's a lot. What's the very best way? Well, we provide protection. I'm trying to do the very best that I can. I'm going to provide protection.
Drag a piece of poly over it.
We can't.
If it's of a size that you can deal with, you can drag a piece of poly over it.
That's not an option.
Yeah, not an option with a lot of the stamp. If it hasn't taken a hard enough set yet, put some.
Just scar it up.
Yes, sir.
With powder release, you may be able to get away.
Powder. I was going to say powder. I've seen guys do it before with powdered release, but not. You couldn't get away with it with a liquid.
No, we have used it with powder, like under a downspout, and we knew it was going to rain that night, but so we put, and it didn't bother it at all.
Yeah. I love
powder. The powder is like a protective layer between the poly and the concrete because it's
now
if it's good powder.
Layer of powder.
Yep. You can actually get away with it with color hardener. If you get efflorescence on there, I've actually used CLR, calcium lime rust remover, and was able to get that off. Several years ago at a job, I had to put blankets down, had white stripes, freaking out. Obviously, it was a dumb move, but I used CLR and it seemed to take it right off. I heard from other people that they would put blankets or plastic over top of color hardener and not have issues as well. I don't know why. Does anybody know why that may be instead of, or if that's even, maybe I got lucky, but I've heard people even at Decorative say that they've done the same thing.
Got me on that one with a liquid. That could have been the phase of the moon, gravity that day, something weird. There's so many variables with that.
Don't forget, we are talking about Mother Earth. So.
Right.
So guys, I'd just like to back up on that one time here to clarify for everybody. So we're using Ben's method. We're putting Delvo in. We dump 10 yards. We have nothing in it. We set it up. We're delaying an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours as we go down. As we're waiting on this thing to set, we are lightly applying a surface evaporation retarder to each of them sections as we're working to keep the top alive. Which
you're keeping it evenly moist.
Okay.
So Emil, make sure evenly moist. So and my favorite for that is actually a steel backpack, the fogger style.
Yeah.
Okay. Because then you can fog it over the whole thing, and then you're not going to get droplets, and you're not going to get any tiger striping or anything out there. Okay.
But I think a key to this is here, if we're using any liquid release, powder release, doesn't matter. We're adding that as we're going. So we have to be aware that color change is going to be a possibility. And then the second part of it would be, we need that moisture to be dry off the surface before we spray the bubble gum, or we're still going to have that stick to the surface. So it just becomes a matter of environment and what's going to work on any given day.
It is the wonderful any given Sunday type thing, Emil. So, everything is about discipline, right? You know what you need to do, and some of this is really drawing back to best practice.
So, but this is something, guys, that I don't think any of us have thought of before as finishers. So it's definitely another rabbit to pull out of the hat, and it's also going to help because a lot of times if you put that Delvo or something in there or step retarder, till we get back to stamp it, we're getting surface tears, and them surface tears are because the surface has dried up a little bit. Well, this should help eliminate that.
Yes. And then to carry that on, just to make sure when we're done stamping and we pull our mats off, we can spray. If we use liquid release, then we could spray more evaporation retardant on the surface. And would that be sufficient for an hour, hours? Is that better than starting a wet cure?
Totally dependent. You're going to need to watch it. It's totally dependent upon your evaporation rate. Sam, I'm sorry, you want to jump in? And I mean, you're going to say the same thing I am. So
I say it forms a layer, but that layer only lasts so long. And even if you don't touch it, the layer will break down over usually an hour. I'm going to say you get maybe an hour.
Or a gust of wind.
Yeah, or a leaf or something blows, like a bug runs across the top of it. Yeah, you're blown at that point then. So I wouldn't ever plan on it lasting for more than an hour without reapplying it. The concrete's still not set, you can go apply more. It just gotta hope it sets after it's still after an hour. After that point, you still sets up at some point. But it's.
So at what point do we stop spraying, say every 45 minutes to an hour, and result to water? Is that where we're ready to saw cut, or when we could saw cut? And then because we have to cure at that point, and that's where we're running into issues. We can't, we can't spray cure and seal on. We can't typically even use a water-based cure and seal because our antique or stain won't adhere. So what's next there?
Yeah, I would up until the point where you're saw cutting. At that point, once you saw cut, the surface should have enough strength to resist those cracks.
You should be at that 500 psi by that point. I mean, that's the whole point that we're looking for is for that early strength to come up. And Don and Sam and you guys can talk about that, because if you guys are understanding how that actually happens and where we're at on that, and that's where, with that strength coming up, that's how we get the less raveling, the spalling on the saw cuts, that type of thing. It's not just having a good saw blade, it's that early strength coming up so that we don't have the tear outs, right?
The jagged edge and all that stuff. If you're saw cutting and you get a nice clean saw cut at that point, saw cut and then actual put cure on it, like the real stuff after you're done saw cutting.
But see, that's something we can't really do, Sam, if we're going to go back and antique or stain. It's getting to a point where we used to be able to do more with concrete, it seems, than what it's allowing us to do now. And is that something we need to accept?
I mean, is there a product that we're not thinking about in this conversation that has popped up yet that would be that, like an extended intermediate cure, maybe, that would last until it got you through the sock head, and then, but would still allow you to come back later.
Well, you got to be
I
careful.
don't
You
know the
can't
answer
use
to that. I'm throwing that out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
You
just
can't use a
an integral
densifier of
cure.
any sort. Yeah, the integral cure, can't use a densifier of any sort, because Ben, you need those reactive surface to for your antiquing, for your color that you're going to do after the fact. Any of the things that you're doing, you don't want to do something that's going to chemically use up things that you want. So don't be using any bro cure type thing, an e cure, any of those types of things that are actually going to have any of the silicates or anything in them, because they'll actually affect what you're able to do from a decorative standpoint. Okay. So using a evaporation retarder until you get to that point. At a certain point there, is it time to throw out some poly? Is it time to do something else? If it's a powdered stamp,
at a certain point, you can wet cure it.
tinting.
That's not going to hurt it. At a certain point, the wet cure comes into play. At that point, if you can saw cut it, you can wet cure it.
Right. And then you're saying, sorry, Don, but you're saying, Sam and Don and Ben and Jason, that once we start wet curing, that we don't want to stop. We don't want to do increments of that. We don't want 15 minutes off. We want that water constantly on the surface, correct? And for how long?
Mm-hmm.
If you can get 3 days of wet curing, you're going to be miles ahead compared to where you're at today, Ben.
Okay.
And if that's just a sand, if it's just a sand dam around the sides to flood it, so you don't have to constantly be maintaining the water level in there, it's worth doing.
Don's showing his age there. That's how they used to do it.
That's honestly, I was thinking pretty clever. I never considered that.
That's exactly how they used to do it.
Well, we used to sand cover it. We used to put a quarter inch, a half inch of sand over the whole thing and wet the sand and be done with it. And then come back the next morning and wet it again. That works.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, it does, because it's going to give that sand is going to accept moisture, and it's going to give it up.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Or just a sprinkler. One of those lawn
Old
sprinklers
school.
works great.
Yeah, lawn sprinkler works great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's digress just a little bit. So we kind of got into a little bit of the placing, finishing type stuff. What about base? Do I need anything different for decorative? I know a lot of decorative is exterior work. So am I looking for anything different for my base? I know Don often talks about the possibility of maybe using plastic even if we're outside, just so we can get that moisture to go the right way. So let's touch on that a little bit.
The way I see the base is if you're going to put $20 into the surface, you better put 50 cents into the base. Don't skip that. Mm-hmm. Put a couple of inches of open graded material down there. So you have a uniform gradation of moisture in the base. Wet the base down. If you don't do that, put a piece of poly over it. Punch some holes in it if you like. But keep that material from finding its way in the crevices of the stones, because it's going to lock there. It's going to add to the friction load on the surface, the bottom surface. And when it's going through shrinkage, it's going to hold on in those little crevices, and you'll get some stresses, you'll get some tension enough to break the slab. So I like the poly because it eliminates the friction for the most part. It's a smooth bottom. So that slab can move around as it shrinks. And it's going to force the water up where you need it through the body of the slab.
Okay. Emma, what are you guys doing for base?
So up here where we're at Rocky, we're generally putting 3 to 4 inches of crushed gravel down. We're just wetting it real good before we pour. Mm-hmm. Definitely open to the fact of putting poly down underneath and seeing what kind of reaction we get with that.
Sure. Ben Bat. Oh, he snuck out.
Yeah, that's it. You're basically using the poly as a multiple thing there. The moisture that would normally be lost through gravity, you want the bleed. Part of the problem is now we don't have bleed. That water tries to go down, it can't go down. It's going to turn and come back up, and keep the surface hydrated more. And then you've also got it's acting as a slip sheet to allow the concrete's going to move as it hydrates. I almost said dries. Jesus.
Whoa.
And then whoa.
You might as well just called it cement.
Whoa. Yeah. And but the shrinkage stresses that it builds up, and that's what causes the crack. So you allow it to slide like Don's talking about, and that gives it an easier. If it can slide easier, it builds up less tension, so it's going to stay where it's supposed to be and crack in your saw cuts. It's going to hold out long enough to where you can get your saw cuts in, or if you're tooling joints in or whatever, it's going to stay where it's supposed to stay.
And I saw a comment about I think Joe might have said something on here about putting plastic on the top. And yeah, if your project is small enough, doing the old school throwing poly over it will have that same exact effect as well. But that's all pre-stamped. So right, that's that protection before we do any of our foo-foo stuff on that surface. But once you get powder release, if you're using powder release on that, you can do powder release and then leave plastic over the top of it for sure. So that is definitely quite an effective, and we would call that basically that's on big jobs we'll call that sweat curing, right? You'll put plastic over the top of it, so anything that's coming out, that moisture is actually still being maintained underneath. It's coming out, but it's staying
condenses,
right there near surface.
Condenses on the underside of the plastic.
Yep.
And the only thing I saw somebody, the same guy, when I saw that message about the plastic on top. Remember, there's two things happening when you use the plastic, right? Those of us that have been around long enough, we used to do this in the cold climates. You're holding heat also, so be very careful to assume that by throwing the plastic on there that I got time. Chances are you just put it in an easy bake oven. Yeah. So
we're talking about clear plastic, not black plastic. That makes it worse. Clear plastic.
Yeah, I just wanted to specify
or white.
Because somebody's going to have a bad experience if we don't say something like that out loud. Like, I like
let's clarify that. White plastic. You want reflectivity, and you want to maintain your moisture below it.
Yeah. Now, and that's where, if you put plastic on it, you better keep a closer eye on it. And I mean that. Because it can rocket ship on you as well. I mean, it's out of here at times.
Somebody in the comments asked about what about styrofoam? Would that be the same concept? Although a lot more expensive.
Wow.
That
would mark things up.
They got more money in their job than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing that styrofoam's good for is scraping the bleed off the top when you got a big area, you run across it with the styrofoam and sweep the bleed water off if you have bleed water. That was the old days.
I'm like, when are you talking about? That was
the old days. The old days.
The garden hose.
That's what I said. We used a garden hose. That's what we used to, a garden hose.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty straightforward there. What about rebar?
So can we stay on this just for a minute longer,
sure.
Rocky?
Absolutely.
Can somebody explain to me the benefit of the powdered release that stays on the slab until maybe a day or two later, and then is pressure washed off? I get a lot of heartburn over that release being on the slab. Yes, I know it's not absorbing any moisture, but what's happening is the moisture at the surface of the slab is being drawn back into the body of the slab. okay? Because you have alkaline surfacing in hot weather. You have alkaline surfacing, and that's a salt, and that's going to grab moisture from wherever it can get it. So if there's moisture in the upper portion of that slab, it's going to grab it. And because the body of the slab wants more moisture to hydrate, the body of the slab is going to steal it from the surface. Am I barking up the wrong tree with this?
We've done the test of this for 310, 308 for and used ACI Foundation money, did all of this. And there was no difference. Now, that's one instance, Don. What you're mentioning is something that you need to be aware of, be concerned about. And you're not at all barking up the wrong tree, because frankly, it shouldn't be being left on there for days, ever. Right?
Yeah.
It's meant to be left on there. It's providing protection through that initial curing stage. Okay. But then it's time to get that off of there and then clean that off as soon as you can pressure wash it, and it can handle that. Okay. And we're gonna clean that off there and wash it off. And then we're going to further water cure or whatever we're going to do to that slab. Usually at that point, you're going to move on into your antiquing and then getting it sealed. But it's definitely not a situation of leaving it on there for days, Don. Don't ever. Right. You're right to bring that up, because guys need to understand what the unintended, I in my book, that's what I always refer to as the unintended consequences. There are always unintended consequences to every action, right? And if you leave that on there, you need to understand what's going to happen because of that. And the because of that is exactly that higher alkalinity and that, those salts, and that actually then going back into the slab, which is an issue.
Right. And I believe that is a lot of the problems that we see with localized checking and minor spalling.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we've talked mix, we've talked base, we've talked placement.
Ben, what now?
Hey,
we were going to exit this one.
I know we still got some ways to get through this. I know we still have some more steps, but before this conversation ends, I think it's important that we touch a little bit on the rest of the decorative side pertaining to overlays, polishing. But I just wanted to bring that up, that maybe at some point before we're done, because we are seeing a lot of changes when it comes to overlays. So let's finish the full depth stamped concrete decorative side.
Sure.
I'd like to touch on that at some point.
About how important it is to clean it after we get to this next stage, the cleaning process, which is something I just recently learned.
Yep.
How important it is through my own failures.
Yep. So next day,
I don't think pressure washer with water alone is enough to strip out that alkaline that's in the surface. You need a cleaner, not something that you're going to etch. But a cleaner.
But something that's going to help neutralize that surface.
Absolutely.
And what Don's brought up is very, very important. Don't use something that's so far to the other side that you're actually etching that surface. And
so what are some things that we're so the guys that are at home, doing? What are some products?
Actually, what I'd like to bring up is exactly what Emil and Ben and you guys just did down at DCI. If you guys want to walk everybody through that, because that is best practice. There is a right way to clean and prep and move on to the next step in decorative. And so if we're talking right now, we've done our initial and intermediate care, and we talked about our mix design. We've stamped, we've done our thing, but now let's talk about what are our next steps? What's the next day look like? And how do we begin stepping through this? Emil or Ben want to take that, because you guys did best practice, and that's perfect.
So for me, guys, we will come in the next day. We have all of our saw cutting done. A lot of times we're doing some engraving and cutting designs. We'll get all that stuff done. Our very next step is going to be to acid wash the surface. So we are coming in with a lot of guys call them a floor scrubber, a swing machine with a soft bristled nylon brush. We will wet the surface.
The white brush.
So
right,
we don't get a white brush. It's a black nylon.
It's real soft though.
Soft, real soft.
It's
Very
the soft.
soft,
It's
yeah.
the soft one, not the hard black brush.
Not the hard one. No,
medium.
sir.
No.
A little bit harder than a car wash brush, maybe. But not much.
Perfect.
Not much more than that.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we're doing anywhere from a 4-to-1 to 8-to-1 acid solution, applying it with a sprayer, trying to get it pretty uniformly on the surface. One guy's wetting the surface, one guy's spraying the acid, one guy's running a scrubber. The guy that's wetting the surface with the pressure washer is immediately rinsing that stuff off so nothing dries. Once we have the entire surface done, we're coming back with a neutralizing solution. I will generally use baking soda or ammonia, and we will have buckets prepared with that, 5-gallon buckets full of that solution. Once it's washed, we're dumping them things back on, running the scrubber over the second time, and rinsing the whole surface.
Perfect. Yep. And a properly cleaned surface will represent what, Emil? Let's give some highlights and some clues about what that surface looks like.
So we are not going to expose the aggregates, but we will expose fine sands. So you will be able to get down on your hands and knees and look at that surface, and it should look like 220 grit sandpaper, say. You should see like a little sparkle on the surface of sand, and what that's doing, it's going to open things up. It allows us to put stains on. We know they're going to absorb and bite in now. We know that our sealers are going to adhere better. And the biggest takeaway from this that I can see for us right now is with the 1L, if we have any kind of weak paste on that surface, it is going to take that off.
Absolutely. And what that's also doing, Emil, is that's taking our bleed of our leftover admixtures and our alkali, right? So the alkali salts that are coming up, as well as the admixtures, your water reducers, your plasticizers, any of that type of stuff that, the green goo that comes up, right? You're actually washing that off of the surface and rejecting. So now you've got a very, very clean surface that you're going to have far less issues than you've ever had.
Yeah. How important is it to do it on next day? Like timing wise, how important is it to get it done, right away?
But Bobby, for us, we're always doing that stuff as soon as we can. So if I poured a job on Thursday, I am generally back there Friday morning doing my saw cut and design work and getting that thing washed. I think it just helps. We're getting it that completed that much sooner, getting it sealed up that much sooner, and keeping the water in the surface.
Ben, did you have something to add?
I think Emil, and it's so job dependent. Everybody on here knows that, but we didn't use any kind of etching, to my knowledge, down there at Bob's. It was just soft enough to where the bristles already exposed the sands for us. So you have to read the concrete. I wouldn't start with putting acid on there. You may be surprised if you run that floor buffer swing machine across there, and you may start seeing some sands and be like, okay, I don't necessarily have to etch this. Even though we started doing that as well. But I wanted to backtrack. We always scrub and try to get the liquid release residue off of there first, because if there's any remnants of that, you're basically having like oil and vinegar on there to where it doesn't want to, the acid may not want to penetrate in there. So we'll use Dawn dish soap or Simple Green, scrub that and get all the liquid release or powder release remnants off of there, and then etch it. So, but start, it's like that with anything with concrete. Start with the least aggressive and then go from there. Same thing if you get into acid.
Beautiful.
Start 10-to-1 or something like that, and then make adjustments. Don't go out there and start 4 or 5-to-1 and think that you can end up burning that concrete or exposing too much. So start in an inconspicuous spot if you can, and start light, and then make adjustments from there.
Emil, I'm blown away with the 8-to-1 acid solution.
It's so green. It's so new.
No, I understand that, but that is a really harsh acid wash. So when we did a lot of exposed aggregate up here around the mall, the Oak Brook Mall, we did, I don't know, 100 miles of Merrimack aggregate. we were washing next day with a 1 to 15 acid, and that was just enough to clean up the stones and not violate the matrix.
Yeah.
So you're finding that the 8 to 1 is acceptable for that when it's green.
Yeah. So we've been doing it a long time, Don, but wet surface is key. You know, we're not putting.
Oh yeah.
So saturated surface, and we're spraying the acid on out of an acid sprayer. So you're not getting concentration.
So you have a dampened surface, and then you have an 8 to 1 that's diluted probably to a 15 to 1 by the time it hits surface.
Sure.
I would say that. I would say
that comes from my backyard, and in all fairness, concrete doesn't stick to it that well anyway.
Okay.
You know, and one of the things when you start spraying acid, we always have our neutralizer right there handy. Like it's already ready to go. If we're acid staining or acid etching, it doesn't matter. Anything acidic, we're gonna have our neutralizer right there in case we see way more exposure, way more reaction. Go ahead and neutralize it, dilute your acid way more, and then start over. Don't go crazy and then think just right in front of you that, hey, this is what it looks like, and you get 50 feet down there and you have no idea that your acid is etching way further down than you want. But I agree. I think that's a great way to get rid of that if there are any issues with the latency at the surface, that it's going ahead and getting rid of that, taking care of that already. And it makes sense the way it was, explained to me with coatings or anything, is you think of each grain of sand like a ball bearing. It allows stain or sealer to go down and kind of lock around that piece of sand individually, and now it gives it more of a chance to stick better.
Yeah, that's good. And another thing, guys, and this is just common practice, if we're spraying the acid, don't ever let your guys set that acid sprayer down on the concrete. You should always set it off the side in a bucket, something like that. Bobby, I think down there when we did acid etch, Ben, the first spot that we did, the patio and the part of driveway were etched. The section down at the DCI where we did the wood plank, we were actually washing that a few hours after we poured it. So we did not acid etch that, just to move things along.
That's pretty good practice across the board, right? With the sprayer can, don't set that on the slab.
Don't set the
slab. Don't set it down. Don't pump it on the slab. Yeah. Come on. And if you pump it in the gravel, set it on top of something, because then you're going to drag the gravel back onto the slab, right? So,
Same goes for your sealer sprayer.
Right. Yep. Good practice. Yeah. Okay. So, Ben, did you have anything more to add into that?
No, I don't think so. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out camera stuff. No, you guys are good.
No worries. Well, it looks good to the rest of us, so it's all good here.
It looks pixely as hell. I'm trying to get Brittany to fix it, but she's scared to get in the camera. So.
It's not on my end.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, looks good.
We're only seeing your hand, Brittany. It's no problem. All right.
Okay, so let's talk color. So we want to color our decorative concrete, guys. So are there some ways that are better than others to do this? Maybe be it integral, maybe it be cast in, cast on, whatever, teaking, staining, water-based versus acid. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit. And does it really matter more or less being with the 1L cement? So Ben Bass, what do you guys? There you go. This
is up your alley, buddy. You go right on ahead with this.
So for us, we're always cleaning everything properly first, just like we just ran through. So we use a lot of water-based stains in what we do in our designs. We are always applying those stains with an HVLP sprayer. So we're never putting those stains on to the point where we are completely changing the color of the concrete. We are just tinting it. If we are putting stains on the concrete to the point that we are putting it on like paint and making, completely changing the color, well, now we're going to have issues later on when we seal and we don't have, our sealer is fighting for a spot to grab that surface where we over applied the stain. Mm-hmm. So stains lightly, just variation shading. Second step after that would be apply our antiquings. We're a big proponent of water-based, the easy teaks and things like that we'll put on, sometimes 2 or 3 colors. letting the surface fully dry is huge before we put any kind of sealer on over it. It seems that, guys, anytime that we've ever forced the surface dry, and we have to do it at times, we have to get out there with the backpack blower or the weed burner and try to dry some things up. But when we've seen issues with sealer, like the laminating on edges and stuff, it always seems, when I look back in my head, boy, it was places that we forced the surface dry because there was still moisture there under there that we locked in. So if we don't have to do that, we try not to. I think the weed burner is actually better than the backpack blower, just because you're getting that heat there and drying it out a little more.
Sure. Now let's kind of dive.
Guys, don't sit there and toast it. Don't sit there in one spot.
Concrete. Yeah.
Just move it along lightly across the surface. Don't cook it. It will pop on you.
Sure.
Now we should back up, guys. And so the reason that we use water-based stains a lot is because I need to guarantee color. So I'm showing somebody design, and we've had issues years ago with acid stains where we had a mahogany acid stain and it came out mahogany on the driveway, and we couldn't get it past amber on the sidewalk. It just would not do its thing, and we wound up staining it anyway. So, however, to back up, if you are going to use acid stains are pretty cool. You could do a lot of different effects with them. You want to do your acid staining before you do your acid wash, because if you acid wash first, you're going to kill that free lime in the surface, and your acid stains aren't going to work as well, or if at all.
And that's what I was bringing up earlier, Emil, about don't ever use a densifier or any of these other, like a Bro Cure and E-Cure, or any of these inexpensive, it's a cure. No, don't ever use a reactive anything on decorative until you're done. Right? We desperately need that availability of reaction in that surface for our colors, for our antiquing, for our sealers, right? And then we can do, if you're going to put something, it's the after. So like you kind of just talked to because some of those things are, they get used incorrectly, and then people understand why I had a problem, right?
Guys, one of the things that, Emil is a master at using water-based stains and fogging them on. In my opinion, that's the correct way of doing it. One of the things I would avoid, Emil does this, I've done this, but the way he does it with just fogging the color on and not depending on that color to just be opaque or heavy to where it takes over. You have to be careful, because when that surface starts to wear a little bit, that stain's going to come off with it if the sealer is not maintained. The nice thing about acid stain is it reacts to the cement and changes the actual color of that, so it's more permanent.
10-2.
What I will
it comes out at 10-2.
I've learned the hard way when it comes to acid staining, like say a driveway or something like that, which I'm not going to ever do again. If there's more than 1 day pour, I will never, ever acid stain, because it will react to Emil's point and be different colors. So I've even gotten to a point where I'm scared to use acid stains in, say, basements. I know we haven't gotten into that part yet, but I've had issues on, say it was a 3 or 4 truck pour. Three of those 4 trucks will look great, and then one of them just reacts totally different, and now you're in a bad situation. You can get out of that with dyes and other stains, but just be careful. Acid stain is more permanent. If I have to, say I'm going to do borders and bands across, say, a driveway, I would prefer to do acid, but you are very limited on your color selection. You basically have earth tones. Your green and blue, be very cautious. They are beautiful, but they can turn black. And sometimes it looks incredible. I don't know why it does that. These guys may know, but be very careful if you're relying on blues and greens that outside, when it comes to UV stuff, it can start to turn black.
Yep. And Ben, what you brought up is goes back to mix design, and I guess QA/QC on your trucks, right? The issues that you'll run into really bad with acid stains is if they're not actually discharging their washdown water, because you'll super increase the alkalinity of, and you guys will hate that truck anyways from a decorative standpoint, because if they do that, that one truck is going to be that hot truck where it's taken off like a shotgun. It's also going to totally take color differently. And so with decorative, you need to actually have, because we're creating art here and there's expectation, you need to have a tighter QA/QC and be aware of why and how these things are actually happening. But discharge water isn't, that's got to be, so the washdown has to be discharged before they reload at the plant, Emil. So, those types of things are things like you need to have those in your pre-construction meeting. And we need to, when you're communicating all these types of things, these are the things that we talk about with the batch plant. Like, hey, this is a really high-end project. I've got, it's gonna be $150,000 project. Telling you what, there are expectations, in play here.
Sure.
And we'd better be aware of the things that are going to basically open Pandora's box for us.
Good. Mike Griffin, did you have a question from the...
Yeah, Tony Ronaldo's asking, maybe he's asking Ben and Abel, what their opinion of the best stain to color compasses and medallions, where a lot of times you're going to use those solid color changes. So
I think it's important to make sure that your compass or medallion is etched. I think that's one of the main things. Make sure that that surface is open to where your stain will adhere and bond, and it's not superficial, just right on the top.
That's good. Emil, do you have anything to add to that?
I couldn't hear Mike when he asked the question, but just to add to what Ben was saying, so making sure that the surface is properly prepped is key. I think number 2 would be like when we're staining, don't overstain so that the sealer isn't fighting for a place to stick to. And then to back up on something else Ben said, like if you look at our jobs and we're staining them, the stain is always faded in. So every stone always has a little bit of the base color showing through somewhere. So even if that customer doesn't maintain that sealer like they should, and it starts to wear a little bit, well, that base color was always there. So it just adds a little bit more of the base color. And Ben, you had this on a job you just resealed because you called me and you said, hey, like it don't look like there's a lot of the stain color left.
They put salts down. Yep.
And then once you sealed it, you put the water, you sealed it and everything came back. Maybe it wasn't as vibrant as it was 5 years ago, but it still looked very respectable.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question for, this might be for Sam, might be for Emil. So I just sitting here thinking about, the colors, and I heard Ben mention the blues and greens, which are some of the hardest ones to get, right? That's the most added color to a mix. Cementitious material added to the mix. At what point do we need to start looking for increased water cement just because of the colors they're calling for? It might not just be a plain Jane. You might have found a mix design that works great for everything, but you're going to get into this specialized situation. And let's say you have, I don't know, 2 or 3 bags of color per cubic yard on a 10-yard load. You're changing your water cement ratio or your cementitious content. So at what point, and it's a question for me, listening to you guys has been great. So at what point do we need to start looking at that?
Jason, I just wanted to say I was actually referring to acid stain. Blues and greens, they can start to turn black. But you're right. That's a great question when it comes to integral color with blues and greens.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have specified that.
Who is Ford and blue and green integral color?
There's still people out there doing it.
Bowmanite.
I little acetone dye before I did blue or green in an integral color. But yeah, you actually do, like from the ready mix side, we would account for the color if we used the powder color, a dry powder. Okay. Once we switched over to like a chameleon system, which was like the liquid pigments, so much nicer. You don't have those problems anymore. But yeah, dry color, you actually do have to account for it because it is powder.
Well, I had plenty of occasions where you couldn't necessarily get the liquid readily made right in front of you. Powder was your only real option, right? Just depending on where you were. Happened to me a lot. And I don't know why, but I had the epiphany, like what's the level that you need to start looking at it?
If we get to a point where somebody wants a color like a blue or green, a really dark gray like a coal, at that point we will factor out using the integral color and switch strictly to a color hardener. So for us, 90% of the time, we're putting a field color in, a base color of integral color, and then all of our walls, steps, borders, bands will be color hardener on top of that. So, but if we get somebody that wants, like I did a blue garage floor one time, and to dye that thing even close to, with the cobalt was ridiculous, and even the blue color hardener is very expensive. Mm-hmm. But and that thing came out cooler than heck. So,
okay.
Has anybody run into issues with the Type 1L with color hardener?
So I would say mix, like being water starved to begin with, would be the biggest thing, Bobby. Mm-hmm. Emil, are you changing things up?
We haven't seen an issue so far with the color hardener. Now I know Ben would be the guy to answer this question better than me. Ben, the color hardener, your driveway was color hardener that we're seeing the surface scaling on, correct?
It was. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously, we had an issue on a 60-yard stamp circle that we did. It was integral color, and that driveway that we did wasn't too far after that. And obviously, it was 4 pours, so we were going to use color hardener anyways. I mentioned you guys in the group chat that we did around 60 yards in the back of the house, same mix design, same color, same brand, same everything, no issues. We get around to the front of the house, now we're having issues. So the first thing I thought was, well, has this new cement made its way into shake-on hardeners? And I personally think it has. And the reason I'm saying that is I don't know with color hardener, but we are seeing a lot of noticeable changes with softness, cracking when it comes to bag mixes, overlays, stuff like that. So I think it's finally made its way into basically all buckets, maybe not all, but a lot of buckets and bag mixes.
I would say you're right, because you can't go down to Home Depot or Lowe's and go get yourself a bag of not 1L.
Right.
Okay. And so, I don't know, Rocky, you're the Deco Creek guy. You can give us some. You may not be able to talk. Oh, look at him smile. Okay.
All I
would say anything.
All I would say is the same cement is I mean, we're all getting the same cement.
Yep.
There's a few people, and it's not made it into the manufacturing really that are. Let's think about it from a manufacturing standpoint. Who's going to pay the extra for Type 1? And then most of the Type 1 that we can get is coming from, well, let's call it undocumented type suppliers or whatever. So nobody wants to take that risk also from a supply standpoint. So it's everywhere. Let's say that much. That's all and that's really all I know. But it really is. Yeah.
And that being the case, putting on a color hardener like that is actually going to require more water than what you're going to require 0.02 to 0.05% more water availability than what you did in the past. Okay. Because the same exact reasons that we're talking about when we're talking about using the 1L cements with the higher blane and the higher percentage of limestone, we're talking about needing that 0.02 to 0.05% more to begin with there. Well, now when we take that actual, it's only powder, come on. You think powder that's not going to have even more of, right? That powder and pigment, but it's got even, now that's all we got right there. Mm-hmm.
And color hardeners, roughly 50% Portland cement. So
exactly,
you start adding this, who knows what the percentage of limestone content is, but that can make a huge difference. Now on my driveway, now we're running into a different issue with other people that are using hardeners. You call your ready mix and say, hey, my surface is scaling. They're going to say, well, it doesn't look like our concrete. That's not our color. You put color hardener on here. So where is... It kind of gets real tricky on, is it the hardener or is it the concrete underneath? The ready mix isn't going to back it because it's not the surface of their concrete. Very tricky situation there.
So to back up on something you were saying, Ben, this is where finishing aids are coming in. For us, if we're putting colored hardener on borders, steps, things like that, we will open up that surface with a finishing aid first, then apply our color hardener.
Correct.
I was going to ask that.
Correct.
So finishing aid for hydration help.
Yep. So so you're going to put down as close to a neutral. You want a good finishing aid that's going to actually hold that moisture in there. Now make sure that your mix design has enough moisture to begin with, and even play with that mix design. If you're going to do something like that, possibly even changing up and adding some manufactured sand to give yourself a little bit more bleed water. There's a couple things there, with all of this, because you're going to the equivalent of you're doing a shake on, okay, and to do a shake we need water, right? And
it's all
it's got to fully wet out. That's got to fully wet out that powder, and so you're going to put that on there. Then you're going to very lightly spray your finishing aid on top of that as well, Emil. Right? That's what you guys are generally doing. Am I correct?
Depends on conditions. If it wets out and we touch it with a float and it's going right in,
don't add any more.
Yeah.
Because some of the finishing aids will actually act like a catalyst. Okay, and you got to be careful because they will actually, some of these finishing aids it'll all of a sudden just fire on you, and then you're going to have a differential set based on and it's going to scrub out differently, and you're just not going to like life. So I mean, Emil and Ben can get into that, but those are things that you see. So
So to answer your question, Bobby, I don't know what the right answer is. I thought hardener we were going to have a better shot. Now I don't know, because and you guys would have a better idea, but typically we're trying to get as much paste up as we can, so that way when we stamp we have plenty of nice surface to get a good impression in. But to my understanding, the more paste we get up to the top and the more the aggregate goes down, that's where we could start seeing more issues. Is that correct?
But you're changing the water cement ratio in the top inch. You're changing the paste volume in the top inch because you're utilizing that moisture. So accounting for it properly is the big thing. If you say you're throwing a pound per square foot, then you probably need 0.2 of water to compensate for that additional hardener. And then you should have better luck getting it actually mended to the surface. And obviously timing with color hardener is always important, because even if you have bleed, you could get the color hardener to turn into a paste, but it may not be bonded to the surface. So timing is just as important, and making sure you have the water available for it is.
Now I may be might get some backlash from this, but for me, using color hardener, man, I've had my best success using volumetric truck. Because it bleeds.
Of course.
It bleeds a lot, and it does. You can see it bleeding. So if I got a bigger project to use and I'm able to use a volumetric truck in my area at that time, I try to, man, especially when I know I have to use color hardener.
And then use a little of that hydration stabilizer.
And thank you, Zach. That's perfect, because that Bobby, what you just mentioned, and Zach, if one of the things that may not be understood, you've mentioned it a couple times, but mentioning the mechanics of that, if you could go into that real quick while we're talking specifically about this, because I think it's important, from a layman standpoint, to understand how that mix design is actually giving up its water.
So it's a race for water. That is what it is. There's a start and a finish line. The start is the same in a volumetric as it is in a ready mix truck.
It's fine. Yeah.
But that race happens right in front of you. In a volumetric, you get to see it. So your aggregates hydrate much easier than your cement does. So they start fighting for the water first, and then they take it all. That's where that false set comes into play. That's when people start to freak out a little bit when a volumetric truck's around. But what you're doing with volumetric is you're watching that happen. In a barrel truck, it's in a truck. You don't get to see it. It's on the way to you. So the water demand in a volumetric, it takes what it needs and then it rejects the rest right in place. There's no separation of the barrel truck spreading out the matrix and getting water in between to where it has to work to close back up. So you get to watch all that. That's why you have a little bit more bleed water, because it's happening right there in front of you and the paste isn't separated. I try to tell people the difference between volumetric and a barrel truck is the difference between a biscuit and a loaf of bread, right? They're pretty much the same.
That's perfect.
But that loaf of bread is a little bit, those particles are spread out a little bit more. And that's that. The mechanics of a volumetric make more sense for things like color hardener for sure.
That's good stuff that I hadn't really thought about before, but I guess it makes sense. Good sense.
That's why I wanted to break it down live while we're talking about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because these things are things we're going to go back to, and we're all throwing these things out here, but we're doing it for a reason, right? So, and we're being as transparent as possible on all of these things. So there are things that that we know we want to make sure that we're sharing them.
Absolutely.
And everything's about water. Everything that we're talking about, I mean, 90% of this conversation is about water, even when it comes to cures and how they're adhering and how the durability of those, most of it is water driven. So starting at the front is where a lot of the issues are going to get cleaned up.
So let's kind of segue into that, the cures and the seals now. Let's kind of get into that. So what am I wanting to do for sealer? Am I waiting 3 days and getting me a 30% solids and making that thing shine off, or do I need to take a little different approach here to this? Emma, what are you guys doing for sealer? How are you guys sealing?
So generally, Rocky, boy, I'm treading lightly here because I know what all the sealer manufacturers say. So all the sealer manufacturers are going to say, don't seal for 28 days. We regularly seal concrete that is 2 to 3 days old with no issues. So it is all about surface preparation and proper sealing techniques and the type of solids and sealer that you're using. So I don't believe in the 30% solids, pure acrylics anymore. We get into the D1s and the Trinic stamp shields, and Kingdom has a product called Excalibur. These are all very thin penetrating sealers, very thin surface build on them, still allowing the concrete to breathe a little bit. And we're allowed to do these things within a few days.
Are you acid washing everything?
We are acid washing everything. And acid wash to neutralize.
I think that's a huge key because of the permeability of finer limestone or finer Blaine cements in general. The particle packing makes them almost impermeable. So opening that surface up is probably the key to having success with early sealing for sure.
Somebody had asked on the YouTube live, what are you using for an acid when you talk acid wash?
So we are using Pracitce Sure Clean. We have a 5-gallon jug of that in the trailer all the time. That's what we've been using for years.
Okay.
That's the orange bucket, right?
Orange bucket, Bobby, correct.
Say that again, Emil.
The orange bucket.
No, what?
Pracitce Sure Clean.
Orange bucket. Orange bucket.
Hey, you never know.
That's going to be a short. That's going to be edited into a short, 100%.
Say it again. The orange bucket.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so cure and seals. I know a lot of the D1 and some of the others, they have the siloxane, and I know Ben Bass, you talk about that quite a bit in some of the sealers, but and Don, you talk about some of that too. Some densifiers maybe before we seal with an acrylic of some sort.
And I'm a proponent of densifying the surface. Lithium silicate, colloidal silicate combination, very definitely. It's not a curing compound, but it does densify that surface, and it does harden off what we find to be very soft surfaces today.
And this, am I going to want to do this before or after color?
After.
There's no reason why you can't put it on after color.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you put it on before color, sometimes you can have an issue, especially if you're going to do any acids. That's a no-no. Don't do it before. Do it after. But what Don is mentioning, it's more than just making that surface a little denser, a little harder. That's also going to take care of a lot of your latency type issues, Rocky. right? So you're gonna a lot of your blushing, a lot of your those types of things, the colloidals, they're very forgiving. Your lithiums, anything that you're putting on, it's got to be thin, 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 right? Don't and be careful with what you're doing, right? Because you don't want to create an issue that you've never seen before and go, oh, those guys. I get it, right? But what that's going to also do is it's what Emma was bringing up and what Ben is bringing up. Those are breathable, right? It's not locking up that surface, right? So doing that in conjunction with these other things, these other products that they were talking about, a penetrating reactive finish on there, they will actually allow that surface to still breathe. A lot of these issues that we're seeing with the 30% solids and these sealers and these things that are because of that late moisture loss out of the 1Ls. Okay. They seem to hold on to water longer, and then they're giving it up, and you've got these spotty weird, and that will go away over time. But let me tell you, it seems like it takes a lot longer than it used to, Rocky.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, right. So, so by having something that's a little more breathable, that's in our favor as a contractor.
Does this densifier, does it alter the color or anything by any way?
No.
Well, it'll deepen.
It'll darken it a little bit.
Okay.
I can touch on this a little bit.
I was going to
go for it, Ben.
Yeah, I guess last spring, so almost a year and a half, a little over a year, when we started having issues with the surface, we're like, hey, if we put densifier on polished concrete that hardens the concrete, can we just not start spraying this on our decorative work? So we started doing that. Seemed to work. I had a couple issues. I talked about this in the first one, where I did a repair with the same color hardener on the driveway, where landscape guys hit the edge, broke the edge off, right? No big deal. We used color hardener. We done many repairs like that. My son and I repaired it, came back the next day, approximately 20 hours or so, and I wiped my hand across that repair, and I had chalking. I had the color of color hardener on my hand. Thankfully, I brought lithium silica densifier. I got the liquid release residue off of there, which is really important. And then I sprayed the densifier on there. I waited approximately an hour and a half. And sorry, I'm falling over sideways here. So I sprayed that on there, waited about an hour and a half, and then I washed that off. And I took my hand and I wiped it. There was nothing. I scrubbed it, nothing. So it was apparent that it was working. So we actually, when we started doing this, we ran into an issue where we got rained on a stamp patio, and we had it was covered, but we had some drips. So I had some repairs I had to do. Densified it. This is integral color on this particular job. Densified it. It was way out in the middle of nowhere. Came back the next morning, went to wash, just get the crystallization off the surface, and it put water on there, and this was a tan integral color buff, and I went to wash it off. And you know how when integral color, like a tan or a brown, when it's dry, it turns peach. I went to put water on there, and I was like, holy shit, this color is locked in. So we ended up actually having to use Surf Prep. I think it's called Surf Prep. It's a type of acid, and we had to scrub that off of there. I can't seal over top. I actually took sealer and sealed over in a corner where a post was, like up against a wall, and it was sure enough peach. So I had to be very careful when you're using densifier, which I think is great, but it can lock in that dry look. So if you're using a tan or brown, red would probably be worse. It would probably look like salmon color. So be really careful with that. If you're going to do it, I have done it since then on integral color, and I leave it on approximately an hour, which it says anyways, and I washed it off and didn't have any issues. So be very careful with that. I don't mean to drag this on, but
that's good info.
That's incredible.
Sealers, I wish I could get completely away from film forming membrane sealers at this point. I wish we could just do penetrating sealers. and that does not have a film on there. Because if there's the slightest chalking, dusting, that sealer is going to come right off with it. And sure enough, your eye is going to go to that immediately, because everything's darker around it. Now the little spot of sealer that flaked off is going to stand out like a sore thumb. So, we have to use that with decorative work. We have to have some kind of color enhancing. So I'm not here to promote products. There may be other stuff that's just as good. I haven't been using this stuff long enough to say that this is a fix-all, but started using single seal, which is to my understanding, penetrating sealer. It has potassium silicate densifier. It also has a silane siloxane blend, so you get that water repellent. The first time I used it, I went back the next day. It showed no signs of having any kind of sealer on there. And when I put water on there, I was blown away at the water repellency it got. So we did that on a stamp job and came back the next day and then sprayed our color enhancing solvent-based acrylic over top of that. From my understanding, since that has silane or siloxane in it, those two will chemically bond together. I don't want to promote this because I don't know, guys. It hasn't been long enough. After a few seasons, I would say, hey, this has worked for us. Hasn't been long enough for me to say that for sure.
Sure.
With the potassium, did you wind up with a residue at the surface after it dries up?
We always do anyways, some kind of crystallization. So we just rinse that off. The crystallization will come off just by rinsing that down and maybe a light soft brush.
And what the potassium will have a white, you'll have some, but it's soluble, so you can scrub that off.
So Ben, you come back with an acrylic and you scrubbed before you did the acrylic, and the acrylic did bring that color back the way that you wanted, we would typically want.
So on the one we sprayed the lithium silica densifier on the integral color, it locked that color in. I couldn't get it off. Like the densifier did its job.
Sure.
But when I put water on there, it was repelling all the water. When typically when you spray water on there, it's going to darken up, right? Yep. It wasn't happening. So we had to get our color back. So we actually just used, a light acid etch and a floor buffer with the bristle pad. What's going to happen down the road, guys, I don't know. It was one of those jobs I was kind of like, holy shit, can't tear this out, or I'm not going to tear it out over a color issue. There's other ways to kind of fix this. So I was kind of stuck in a situation where I had to try to figure it out. I don't know if the acid after that is counterintuitive to the densifier. I'm not sure, but we did get our color back.
But with any patch in plain gray, you battle the devil with trying this and trying that to even out the colors. So that's kind of normal.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I guess, let's kind of talk about the high solids, the 30%. Is this something we really want to just kind of steer our customers away from? Is there a way we can still maybe use them, or do we
don't give them a choice on your sealer?
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, now that may be something that we can just do as decorative guys working for homeowners. There may be specs on commercial and other stuff. I don't even give people a choice.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and if you're going to use those like that, Rocky, let's make sure you're using them, don't over apply them.
Sure.
Right. We mentioned it in one of the chats yesterday, or the day before. There was some stuff going back and forth on the one where they were having issues with it. Right. And the right way to do that is a light coat that's back rolled, and then come back and you put another one on. If you apply that too heavily, you are going to have something that's going to be a moisture trap, and it's going to just, I know you don't want to come back, but generally when you're doing decorative or when you're doing these things, you're going to, the right way to do it. It's no different than if you're painting a car, okay? Or if you're doing, decorative painting, like painting cabinets, you don't do a heavy coat, man. A light coat, and then come back and, you want to wet it out, yes, but don't over apply it, back roll it so that it'll wet out. I mean, these are things that Ben and Emil have been doing for years. There's a right way to apply it, and then then just putting it down until the surface is just about white from it. Oh, because it's real shiny and it's nice. Yeah, and you got a nightmare and you just don't know it, right?
Well, there's something very interesting with that particular post yesterday, because they used a Diamond 350, which is a cure and seal, and the solids are only around 12%. So when you consider the solids at 12%, with that kind of result, it had to be flooded on there.
Good point.
So
I thought it was I didn't realize it was that low in solids. I thought it was 350 was up at like a 30%. But
no,
my argument is with we're working with a company that puts a lot of acrylic stuff down. Is if the surface is 20% less permeable, and I just commented this, and you're using a 30%, it's acting like a 50%, right? Because the void is not there.
Thank you, Zach.
So
thank you. It's math.
I think what is happening is we're getting things sealed too soon with too much. I mean, a 20% at a 16th deep is going to create issues with 1L for sure, because of the delayed moisture loss.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, Rocky, is that, we have delayed moisture, so you've got a delayed bleed. Well, if it's delaying at the bleed, it's also drying out slower overall, right? So as that moisture is you've so particle packed that surface with the bleed, with the just overall, that it's going to dry out slower, which means it's going to interact differently with all of the decorative means and methods that we've always used. And so you do have to dial some of those things back.
and many of these cure and seal combos are very specific, that you're using the cure portion of that combo with one coat. You're not putting two coats down to achieve sealer and combo. You have to come back for the sealer after the cure has worn off or disintegrated someplace to a certain degree. So they can't be lumped on like a painter lumps on 3 coats of paint by moving his roller 3 different directions.
That's not 3 coats, Don. Come on. Yeah. Let me load this roller totally full, right?
I'm putting 3 coats on.
Yeah.
So for me, guys, like the 30% solids and things like that, they have their place. If we have a 20-year-old pull deck and we go back and saw cut some designs in it and do some fancy staining and things like that, then I'm going to pull the pure acrylic off the shelf and still cut it with some xylene and roll a coat or 2 of that down.
Emil, you want to go into the xylene?
That's what I was going to say. Thank you, Ben.
Let's talk real quick specifically about using the different, instead of using an acetone, let's talk about the slower burn and why.
Yep.
So we want to cut it with something. So if we cut it with acetone, it is going to dry super fast. It's not going to allow that product to absorb down into the surface. And if you're going over an old surface, it's not going to bite in enough. The acetone's hotter, but it's going to dry before it allows it to bite into the existing sealer if there's existing sealer present. So the xylene will burn slower, allow it to soak in better, and allow it to bite in better to the surface that may already be there.
And I've had a lot of people comment about how we're going to wait longer, especially on some of these residential deals, to get a full seal on a decorative project because they need traffic, they want to use it, all these things. And that's something that I don't do nearly as much decorative as Emil or Ben. But years ago, we started putting the next day, we would do a real thin cut of sealer just to help protect the surface. And then we would come back after our 28 then. And now I would say up to 48 to 50 days. And do a final seal on it. Yeah, you're going to have to clean it. But overall, looking at durability of both the concrete and your sealer, that's going to probably be the best bet.
It is not. I'm sorry, what?
Well, it's about reading the directions on your product as well. and understanding what that actually says. And Don brought it up. These Kieran seals are meant for dual application. They're not meant for a one and done and rock and roll and get out of there. We have a responsibility for what we've created, and Emil going back and cleaning up, and Ben and these guys, they go back and do these things after the fact. If you're committing and you're in decorative concrete, you're never just there, wham bam and gone. It's got there is a life cycle to even setting this baby off and patting it on the butt and it being theirs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Zach, if it's not feasible to wait, in my opinion, if we did this decorative slab and we don't do any of our coloring or anything, and we wait 28 days to come back and stain, seal, antique, etc., what's going to happen to that thing in 28 days? People are going to drive across it. There's going to be dirty
lots of bird poop.
Yep. And we're going to be fighting that, trying to clean it. So I'm a big proponent of getting it done as soon as we can, getting a light coated sealer on there, knowing that at some point, like Ben's saying, we may have to come back and, I'll tell the people what to look for. We have the sealed. I am happy with it. If we see it start to look like this, give me a call. We'll come back, give it a clean, put a second coat on. It's a lot easier to go back and apply a second coat than it is to get a call back because of over application.
Yep.
Yes.
And I agree. Well, if you get a quality first coat down, it's a pressure washer and a guy. Yep. Maybe a little scrub brush to get some things off, but it's pretty easy cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good practice. Okay, so I think we've kind of beat that down, right? So I guess one last thing to kind of touch on is the topic of expense, right? So a lot of what we're talking about is a little bit extra product. Who covers that expense? I know AJ talks about this a lot. Well, I got to buy another on a small driveway. Two more buckets of something. That's a lot of my profit. So how do I kind of address that? Do I need to approach this with two different contracts? Hey, we can do this bare minimum, and this is what it is, and this is what you're going to deal with, or here's the more expensive price and whatever, or you just say, this is my price. You want it or you don't. Emma, I think
you treat it like concrete. I mean, it's just factored into your quote.
Okay.
That's with anything else. I mean, I just put that into our costs. And then before we do our markup or however you do your pricing, maybe adjust your square foot pricing to account for it.
You guys want to see a little bit about pricing? Go check out the YouTube channel. Ben got into that pretty deep right there. So go check that out.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the tough part, Rocky, is that I would say Emil and I and some other people, look, there's only so much money people are willing to spend on a job that's logical to them, or they'll say, hey, I'll go with pavers, I'll go with stone, I'll go with asphalt, or I'll just keep the shit gravel. So it's a very tough thing that there's, in their mind, they have this number sounds maybe high, but I could see it being worth it. And then there's illogical. Right. Everybody's illogical level is different depending on who you're working with. But we're already at that threshold. I feel like our pricing, like when I price jobs, the numbers don't lie, but I'm like, holy shit, I would not pay that for this. But that's just, everybody's different. And I use the Ozark cooler from Walmart a lot. And then there's people that are fine with those. That's what I have. And there's other people that have to have a Yeti. So branding has a lot to do with it. But like you said earlier, on these big projects, say 6-figure projects, or even 20, 30 grand is a lot of money to spend on a project. You have got to deliver, and it's expected to deliver, and there's high expectations. Yeah. But it's also kind of getting into where we're exceeding the threshold of what's reasonable to most people. And then it's also, we want our stuff to last, and that's what we're running into.
I would say the bigger thing there, Ben, is the risk.
Yeah, client expectations are usually 100% greater than yours as a concrete installer. There's no two ways about it. They think that they can put down a nice gray driveway. There won't be a spot in it. It'll all be the same color, just like a piece of porcelain tile. And it just doesn't. That's their expectation. That's what they see in the books and they see on YouTube. So that's the way these expectations get set, And then we come along and say, no, that's not going to work that way. And if you want that or anything close to that, this is what the numbers are going to look like.
And even then, Don, you can't guarantee, like, I'll be the first to admit, if you go to my page and look at any of our pictures, like the ones behind me, best believe that I have walked around and went up and down and tried to find the best angle that I possibly could. So, but at the same time, you're right. Expectations are huge. I mean, you're almost talking people. Sometimes I don't even know how people decide to go with us, because you're kind of almost talking them out of some of the things, just saying that, hey, you're going to have some texture variation. These colors aren't ever going to match exactly, and so on. You have to set those expectations up front and not be unrealistic on picture perfect stuff. That everything is not what it seems. If I walk around this job up here on the top right to the other side and take a picture, is going to look completely different. Lighting, there's so many things that affect that. So those expectations, like you said, are so critical.
I'd like to add to that. I don't think at this point, for a lot of us, for Ben, for myself, we're not selling concrete anymore. We're selling an expectation. So there is this.
Well, you're selling artwork.
Yeah,
what you're selling.
There is an expectation. If they're hiring Ben, they're hiring me. They're hiring. There's a whole group of us that it is going to be a certain way, and if it's not, shit hits the fan. So we've experienced that firsthand. With material issues. So.
But you can still under promise, over deliver, right? You know what the expectation is, and if you set that bar to where this is what is feasible, and it's easily obtainable, then the over deliver part becomes pretty easy, and they're really happy.
Yeah. Well, generally, even in over delivery, it's never enough for us.
Well,
well, you aim for perfect, and most of the time you end up on good. And good to you is typically great to the homeowners.
Yeah.
There's always, on that same line, there was an old timer who did some stamp work that I would talk to, and he would said every time he'd make his samples, he would intentionally make them not look the best. That 100%. Way, when people were coming to look, he's like, yeah, see, this kind of stuff can happen. So that always kind of stuck with me. So it's kind of
genius.
I've said it for years. Leave something bad, something real easy to fix for the inspector to catch. That way they feel like they're doing their job.
That's good.
Well, we had an engineer and a quality control guy from the aggregate company out looking at our concrete last year for some aggregate issues. And one of the things that they said to me that really stuck is your work doesn't even look like concrete anymore. And that's part of the reason why people are so devastated when something happens, and it's coming into with the one out here too, guys. In the decorative market, we are selling something that people are setting an expectation, like you said, Don, that it's not concrete anymore. They're comparing it to the tile they're buying at Lowe's, like a natural stone product or something like that, because we're going over the top with the finishes. So we have to figure out a way to make these finishes last like they did in the past.
And because they're spending 20, 30, 40% greater than a plain gray, doesn't ensure that the outcome is going to be spectacular.
Correct.
That's always that too is a problem. So
the part that was mentioned earlier about, do you do, option 1 or option 2, and there just absolutely can't be that, Emil. I mean, it is when we're doing what we're doing from a decorative concrete standpoint, the whole thing is best practice. And if they can't afford for you to do, this costs this much to have, well, then you can't afford, because I can't afford to take the risk to not do it right. Right. And that you guys have to take.
Or let's do half of it this year and half next year when you can afford the whole.
Guys, I have got to a point, I don't give my customers a lot of choice on sealers. We don't show them color charts and things like that, because it sets an expectation. So we'll sell projects off of pictures, off of stuff that they've seen before, and it just makes it a lot easier that way.
Yeah, it's easier just to say, like, hey, are you guys thinking, I think out here tans and browns and maybe a little bit of taupe here and there is a lot easier than giving them a color chart and getting very overwhelmed.
Any time that a customer has ever given me input as to how they want the job done, whether it be color or reinforcement, it has turned into some type of issue. So
Absolutely.
anymore, it's the job gets done my way, or you need to move on to somebody else.
They are not the pro.
Correct.
Yeah, these things that we're talking about right now, actually, if we were going to change this chapter would be all the way at the very beginning, Rocky.
Sure.
Right, because these are the things that we're talking about, and these are the expectations that we're
Right.
setting right from the beginning.
Yep.
And there is one very last chapter that we do have to address, okay? And that's maintenance.
Yes.
Right? And the maintenance and the comeback and you know the reapplication of a sealer, the reapplicate, all of these things are even more of an issue with the 1L. Okay. And making sure that homeowner isn't, you know, if you aren't giving him explicit directions on how he's supposed to be taking care of this new car on some of these jobs, most of these projects cost more than their second car. So darn it, they better know how to take care of it.
Right.
Okay. So, you know, costs more than the car that they got the kid, and they, you know, make sure these are facts.
Yeah.
Well, my grandfather never had to put sealer on his driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, I mean, this, Ben and Emil, if, you know, you guys want to talk real quick about those last, I mean, because that really is the more important, like, this is where we get into actually leaving a legacy. And that legacy is on those turnover documents, you know, talking about how, because we're instructing the rest of the industry here, but also setting expectations, because you just don't just finish the job and walk away.
Sure.
All right. So now we've got turnover, and when we're at turnover, we're giving instructions. So they're happy, we've got stuff, but what are the next steps here? Because we don't want them coming and cleaning this. There's got to be directive for, you know, this needs to be clean. You need to call me. You know, what are your next steps here, Ben and Emil?
So you want to go first, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, setting expectations up front when you meet with them, say, hey, this does require some maintenance, and talk to them realistically about what that is. You know, you don't want to sell this, which and make the mistake I did. I wasn't planning ahead when I started. I was so excited to get into this. I wasn't even thinking about having to come back in 5 years and address issues, maybe color fading, things get scuffed, you know, resealing. I wasn't even thinking that. I was just so excited to be able to go out and do this stuff that now this stuff is coming back to me because I wasn't properly planning for that. So make sure that you are thinking ahead and talk to them up front when you meet with them, or when you turn your proposal in. You know, talk to them about this does require maintenance. It's not a one and done thing, and you do want to protect your investment.
Yeah. So for me, guys, what I tell them is you wouldn't go buy a brand new Corvette and leave it sit out in a driveway and walk up over top of the hood every day and never clean it or never protect it or think about waxing it. So they're making an investment, just like they bought that Corvette. This concrete is now an investment.
Perfect.
So we give them a piece of paper that on the front side of that paper has our completion. It says, you know, when the job was completed, what colors were used, where them colors came from, sealer that was used, you know, where they can buy it. Flip that piece of paper over on the back. There's instructions on care on the concrete. So this is how you should go about cleaning it. If you have organic stains, if you have this, go through it. And on every one of them documents is always my phone number, because I tell everybody it is a ton easier for you to pick up your phone and ask me a question than it is for you to make a mess and then have to call me to try to come fix it. Generally, we have put too much work down over the past 30 years that it's too much for me to handle to go out and service everything. So what I've been trying to do is, at least the first time, go back, walk the customer through cleaning it, touch-ups, and resealing. We just did that last week, and we have a lot of our jobs are referrals. So we were helping a past customer, and another past customer that was a friend of his came and helped along with the process, just so he would know what to do with his patio then. So, and it saves them a ton of money too, because then they're not paying us to constantly come back and take care of the project.
Well, it sets a cycle in place so that it doesn't just flat out degrade. You know, you're not having to come back, you know, and nothing's been done and now they're complaining about it. If you'll take care of it correctly and them not go and try and put something else over the top of it that you're like, you did what?
Yeah.
You know,
I went to Lowe's and I got this stuff from
Home Depot.
and we've had that a couple times already. You know, and it's like,
yeah.
how do I do it? Well, now I got to get the sandblaster out. So,
and what you just described, Emo, is just smacks of professionalism.
Yes,
100%.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you two to put that out there, because this is here for posterity's sake. But what our expectations are as a group is to put these things in place so that our friends and brothers in the industry are actually, we're trying to mentor and guide. That's why we're giving this information out so freely. If we don't do it, they're going to get information from a not so good source usually,
right?
Or from somebody who's never done it. Oh well, this is what my chemical salesman said to use. I wouldn't use that. Why are you doing that? Right? The decorative requires a greater attention to detail.
Yeah,
and that's that type of thing. But this situation right here, this very last chapter that we're talking about, it is the most important, because it's what will continue to bring you in. What Emil was talking about. I had a past customer that had a past customer that had come on, Emil had a stinking garden party doing a patio, with guys that all had his work, and they were there to learn and to take care of theirs better. That's incredible. That's what we want to see. So
guys, I want to add on to that, if y'all don't mind. Probably not the smartest business thing to do, but I have been completely transparent with everyone I've met about some of the issues that we're seeing. I just tell them, look, we basically, our cement that we've used for over 100 years has changed. We don't have a choice to use anything else. We are seeing some issues, not on every job. We've even had issues that maybe on one job could be on a couple trucks and not others. So it's something that I'm telling everyone that. Has it made people decide not to use concrete? Yes. But I know that I've been honest. You don't have to do that. But if something happens down the road, hey, we talked about this. I'm going to do everything I can to address it. But we did talk about some of these issues that we're seeing as this new cement is kind of being figured out and learned for us on the decorative side.
When you think about where we're at since 1L came into our lives, we're still fighting that material even yet today. I mean, we've been working with this for what, 12, 14 years now? Approximately?
Not us, but some people. I mean, we've only had it a couple of years, 2.5.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Up here, we've had it since 2014. And then after 14, we got the kiln dust added to it. So we've been dealing with it for a long time. And when you think about it, it's been a hurdle. I mean, it's try this, try that, try the other thing, because the big guys didn't want to try anything. They just wanted it in the marketplace. So we're,
Don, one of the things that's important to bring up, and you say that, and it's just being very transparent, but really one of the things that we've found is that really a return to best practice in all aspects is really our greatest get out of jail free card.
Absolutely.
When it comes to, I get the things of, well, we never had to do this before. What do you mean? So you never cured before? Okay, really? These
That's
are
true.
But these things are things that you would not survive in a court of law of telling somebody that you've never cured before. So
exactly.
So tell me which part that you lied on. Every contract that you've ever signed said that you shall, right? Doesn't say I might, or if I need to. Says you shall cure, right?
Careful.
Do what?
I said, be careful what you say and show up, and they can come back up their ass.
Yep. So, be careful and understand this. Read your contract, and write your contract well, right?
Yep.
And all of that all matters.
Yep.
So, but it really is a return to best practice. And that's, as we're looking at this, it's that, mixed design and prep, initial curing, intermediate curing, the things that we were talking about doing, the cleaning and how we do this and how we step through all of those pieces. And then at the very end, how we're turning it over. And I think that, go ahead,
and
Don.
that extends now. Best practice always occurred in commercial, municipal, and state work, going back as far as I've gone back.
Whoa.
That's a long time. That pretty much never occurred in residential. So best practice is something new to the current generation of concrete people.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, guys. So I think probably one of the last things we should probably move to and touch on is what Ben brought up earlier about maybe some polishing and overlays. How is that world affected? Yeah.
What about exposed ag?
Exposed ag. Ben, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I know we've been on here a while. That we can venture into epoxies and so many things on the decorative side. I almost just maybe a thought that maybe there could be a phase 2 because there's repairs. There's so many different things, countertops. I mean, it just goes on and on with decorative and repair stuff. I don't know if maybe that could be another one, but just a thought.
I kind of tend to agree with you because I often will lump overlays and such into coatings, and that's all part.
Facebook says waiting for live video signal. It's been spinning ever since we lost it.
We're back on YouTube. So I lost power at my house, so my laptop stayed running because it's on the battery, but everything else shut out.
Oh, so do you have?
Let me check here. It looks
you've obviously got power to your internet.
Now, that's what happened.
No, it flashed on you. Okay.
Yep. It shut everything off. Shut my TV off. Everything. It came right back on, but.
Rocky, what you might have missed is we talked about maybe doing a part 2 of the decorative work because it reaches into so many different.
Yep. Are we parts. Still live on Facebook? Is that?
I believe we are.
Looks like it.
Okay. Yeah. We consider doing the commercial work next, but maybe we should be doing the part 2. So let's just have a little discussion offline after this, and we'll figure out what we're going to do next.
Yep, and I agree. So I think we kind of beat this one pretty good, guys. The decorative world on this, and we started at the top and went all the way to expectations and curing. So.
Yep.
Anything else you guys want to throw in before we sign off here tonight on the 1L Cement Best Practice Finishing Series Decorative Concrete?
No, I think Don brought it up very, very well there at the very end, Rocky, when you weren't on, but that for years, since time immemorial, since Don was a young man, we use best practice in commercial, industrial, municipal, DOT, everything, and we just that is now a must with residential, with decorative, with everything. And everyone acts like it's so fresh, but we've had to do this forever. This is how we accomplish these types of jobs, like Jason and I have behind us, like Bobby goes on all the time. Best practice is absolutely required. Attention to detail and best practice is required in this.
And it's not just finishing best practice either. It's everything. It's third-party inspectors. It's cylinders. It's air content checks. It's everything that. So like commercially, we're held to the rules, right?
Yep.
No disrespect, but residential, there really isn't any rules.
It's a valid way to put it. Yep.
It just there isn't. It's so. CYA isn't just best practice. It's not just finishing techniques. It's not just cures, sealers, and all the different things. It's not just that. It's doing the research on your mix design. It's It's again getting that third, and you don't even have to get third party. More often than not, guys, if you want somebody to pull some cylinders and break them for you, it's X amount of dollars, and your batch plan will do it for you. Then you have something, right? They're small CYAs. There's a dollar value with them, but the rules that commercial follows really needs to be instilled in the residential level.
And, from a court of law basis for residential guys, they probably won't realize this till I bring it up. But this happens always in the courtroom. The judge will ask the contractor, well, who designed the driveway? And the contractor is going to say, well, I did. Oh, so you're a designer. Well, who engineered the reinforcement for that driveway? Well, I did. Well, do you have a shingle? You have a license to do that? Well, no. And then the next question is, who chose the ready mix? Who designed that ready mix? Well, I just bought it from the ready mix guy down the street. Oh, okay. So you think that this doesn't play out in the court of law? It does every day, and you're always the loser because you're acting as the designer and the contractor, and you're not the designer. So you're carrying a big burden when you reach out on these projects and mess them up.
Well said, Don.
Very well. Yep. All right, guys. Well, I think that's a good close right there. It's a good way to wrap that up. I appreciate all you guys on the panel once again. It's always a pleasure to be able to pick your guys' brains. I always walk away from these feeling like I take a wealth of knowledge every single time. So again, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Mike Griffin, we'll be in contact. We're going to do this again. Just stay tuned. We'll post about it. Mike will blow it up and let you know when and what we're going to address and who hopefully will be here to be on the panel. So until then, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. See you guys.
Thank you very much, guys.